In this video, we want to evaluate the difference quotient, f of x plus h minus f of x, all divided by h, for the function f of x equals x squared minus 6x, and then simplify our result. Now, the difference quotient is an expression that gets used a lot in calculus. It's really important as we begin our study of derivatives later on. So before we get to the calculus part of the difference quotient, we need to be sure we can just evaluate the difference quotient, and that's the purpose of this example. So I'm going to break this down into a few parts. I'm going to start with the very first part of the difference quotient, which says we are to find f of x plus h. I'm going to do that in red. So f of x plus h, you have to realize this is function notation, and what is in the parenthesis, remember, that is your input. That is what you are substituting in for x, or you are replacing x in the function, x squared minus 6x, you're replacing x with x plus h. And I always tell my students to pause if they feel confused with how to start this, and always go back to an example, an easier example, one where the input is a number. For example, if I was asking you to find f of 3 would imply we are substituting 3 in for x. So we're replacing all of the x's in the function, x squared minus 6 times x, we're replacing those with 3's. So that sometimes can help you then transition to f of x plus h, and remembering that's just telling us to plug in x plus h everywhere we see an x in the function. So instead of x squared, we have x plus h squared. And then instead of minus 6x, we have minus 6 times x plus h. So that's the f of x plus h part of the difference quotient. And then we're going to subtract f of x. But remember, f of x is just the original function. Let me do that in blue. So f of x is just the function we were given. That was x squared minus 6x. So now that you hopefully can clearly see the two pieces in the numerator, then we can do the entire difference quotient now. So f of x plus h was x plus h, the quantity squared, minus 6 times x plus h. And then we are going to subtract f of x, which is the original function. In this case, that was x squared minus 6x. But we need to be careful here because this particular function has two terms, x squared minus 6x, and we need to be sure we're subtracting the entire function, both of those terms, which means we need to have parentheses. That is a step that sometimes is missed, and that will cause a problem later if you're missing those parentheses. And this is all divided by h. So now we want to go ahead and simplify. And I'm going to do a little bit of this work off to the side. Remember, when we have x plus h, the quantity squared, that means we are actually multiplying x plus h by itself. So x plus h times x plus h. So we have to distribute. So first, x squared, outside, x times h, inside, h times x, which is the same as x times h, and then h times h, which is h squared. So that will simplify into x squared plus 2xh plus h squared. Then we need to distribute the 6. We have a subtraction here, so minus 6 will distribute, so that's going to be a minus 6x minus 6h. And then what we have in blue, we also have to distribute. So we'll distribute here, and that is minus x squared plus 6x, all divided by h. Now, if we have simplified correctly, then this h in the denominator should eventually divide out. So let's go ahead and combine like terms in the numerator. We see that the x squared minus x squared subtracts out, and we have a minus 6x and a positive 6x, and those are going to subtract out as well. So in the numerator, we are left with 2xh plus h squared minus 6h, all divided by h. And you'll notice in the numerator, all three of these terms have a common factor. They have a greatest common factor of an h. So we can factor out an h. That will be h times 2x plus h minus 6, all divided by h. And by factoring, then we can divide out the h's. So we are left with 2x plus h minus 6. And if you had this written in a different order, that would be fine because the order doesn't matter. But 2x plus h minus 6 would be our final answer.